Hey guys! So since today is International Menstruation Hygiene Day, I thought why not give you guys 6 tips on menstrual hygiene. And I feel like this is such a voodoo in our country that many times women and girls don't end up actually knowing the basics of how to be hygienic during menstrual days, especially in countries like mine, like India or other developing countries. I think there's just some quick tips and tricks that you can use so that you can be way more hygienic during menstrual days and also keep it hygienic the whole month, the whole year. And it's just super easy tips, but you know, I feel like we don't talk to friends and family about it as much in countries like ours. And so this video might be super useful for you guys to know the super easy tips to a very easy time during your periods. So without further ado, let's start off with tip number 1. Tip number 1 is actually a very mental and emotional tip, and that tip is just to be proud to have your periods. Growing up in our family, my parents, like my mom, I remember when I got it first time, told me about it, taught me about it a little bit, and showed me how to wear a pad, and that was kind of it. It was such a kind of voodoo topic in our family that we didn't really discuss it, and so much so that even when I had my periods, my mom would just tell my dad, oh, don't worry, she has stomach pain. I'm like, why can't we openly talk about periods? And you know, so I never really learned how to properly take care or be hygienic during those days because I wasn't taught otherwise, and that in fact had led to once even me getting an infection, until I realized, oh wait a second, I need to do the basics of being hygienic. The same way you take a shower, the same way you brush your teeth, you need to clean your part down there. You need to clean your vagina during your period days. And having periods is something to be so proud of. It makes us women, and it's completely healthy and natural. So that would be my first tip. Just be proud of it, own it. Do not be scared even going into a pharmacy or telling your boyfriend or telling your father that yes, you have periods. Of course you do. It's the most normal, natural thing in the world. That now brings me to tip number 2. Tip number 2 is I'm gonna run through the basics of the different kinds of menstruation products you can use. I started off using pads, which is this. This is how a pad looks, of course. But when I moved to Europe, I noticed a lot of girls were using tampons, and it seemed like they were a lot freer and able to move more and do sports and stuff way easier than you could with pads. So then I actually asked a friend of mine, a European friend, not even an Indian friend, to teach me or show me how to use a tampon, and that was game changer for me. So nowadays I use mostly tampons, which looks like this. And each one has its pros and cons. I think pads are better to sleep with because I still sometimes sleep with pads, but tampons are good for when you're on the go. And it's super easy. You don't feel anything, and you get different sizes, so it's great. I like both. There's also a new thing that is the cup that's come up, which is something that's reusable, so that's super good for things like waste management, because I know tampons and pads are super bad for decomposing and for getting rid of from the planet, because they take about 500 to 800 years, because the kind of substance that pads and tampons are made of are this type of non-degradable form of cellulose, which just absorbs more and more liquid and just never decomposes. So, which is why the reusable option of the cup, there's a Diva cup that's really popular and a couple more brands, which looks like this, is a great alternative to get into. I'm gonna look into it myself, and I can make a review video on it later if you guys like, but that's something I think the whole world should move towards, depending on, of course, how comfortable and stuff it is. And I'm sure in the next coming years there'll be more advances made, but those are the 3 options. I know a lot of women in India still use cloth, and I think that is super, like, it's okay, but I don't think it really solves the problem, because most times the women that do end up using cloth as their pad are not very hygienic. They don't clean the cloth, because if you're putting something in such a sensitive part of your body, you need to make sure it's almost sterile clean. So I would highly suggest against using something like a cloth unless you do clean it and dry it very, very well. So now that brings me to tip number 3. I mean, this whole video is about menstrual hygiene, so let's indeed talk about hygiene. And hygiene and cleanliness is the most important thing during your periods. I would recommend you to wash your area almost twice a day minimum, like once when you shower and once before you go to bed. It's any kind of blood or dry blood that stays there is super bad for infections. Another thing is to try and do wash it with a very gentle soap, which is a pH neutral, because your skin is very sensitive. So you would require a soap that it does not, harm your skin health or make it irritated. So there's a lot of soaps you can buy that are especially made for vaginal cleaning. So do buy that. If not, then buy a super sensitive soap with no perfume and no parabens, and just as natural as possible. Another hygiene tip would be to keep it very dry during those days. So the more wetness it is, the more chances of infection there are. So try to keep it very clean and also dry it quite well. And then of course use your menstrual products on the go, and you should be fine. Now it brings me to tip number 4, which is the kind of clothing you should wear during your period days. Most people don't think much about this, but wearing a really tight pair of jeans or wearing something that's really tight around your area is actually not very good for you during your period days, because it rubs against the very skin that is extra sensitive now during these days. The best option would be to wear a clean cotton underwear, because that's the kind of fabric that's not going to irritate your skin further. So it would be something like loose trousers, not too tight around your vagina area, and keep the underwear quite cotton, and if it's organic cotton, even better. But cotton, clean, dry. I think that would be the best for your clothing options. Tip number 5 to do with menstruation is, of course, the pain management. For me, I think when I first got my periods, the first couple of years, my pain was unbearable. I literally could not stand it. I think I would take half a day or a day even off and be dying with period cramps, and with my hot water bottle and paracetamol and all that. But since then, I've really learned to manage my pain a lot better, because when you as a woman know when your periods are about to come, like 24 hours before, and sometimes you can even estimate when the pain is about to start, because my pain starts about like the second my first drop of blood comes out. So you kind of can estimate that, okay, if it's about to start sometime today, and the second the first drop comes out, you take your paracetamol, you take your ibuprofen, so that you've controlled the first bout of it. And for each girl it's different. I mean, if your pain is absolutely ridiculous for all 3 days, I think there's a bigger issue, so you should definitely go to the doctor to check it out. But a usual amount of pain would be the first day of your periods. You have pretty bad cramps for either first half or the full day, and that definitely can be managed with painkillers and a hot water bottle, and sometimes also just a little bit of willpower of knowing it's gonna fade away. And indeed, like I said, if it's too much, please go find a doctor and talk to them, because it could be a cause of something more underlying within your uterus. So yeah. And the last tip concerning periods is PMS. Of course, every woman has PMS in a different way. Sometimes you have PMS like crazy, sometimes you don't. Some women have it a lot more, some women a lot less. Me personally, I did not really have PMS for the longest time growing up. The last couple of years, I have seen symptoms come in a bit more. But the best thing to do with PMS is understand that it's happening, that you're gonna get it. Try as much as possible, indeed, to be rational when you do have those mood swings. When you have your cravings as well, if you're on a very strict diet, try to, be reasonable and stop yourself. But I say, hey, once a month, if you have a craving, also just do it. You're only human. But I think the more tricky part is more the mood swings and the people around you that maybe you react to unreasonably, or say or do something. That would be my thing to watch out for. But apart from that, again, PMS is because you have hormonal changes in your body and you are gonna be PMSy, and it is, again, totally natural and normal. But try as much as you can with your own willpower and brain power to try and control it, because everyone else around who gets the wrath of your PMS sometimes won't really understand where it comes from, and it's not really nice for them to see you just lash out at them for no reason or have really emotional roller coasters and stuff. So that would be it, I think. I think those are the pretty bare minimum tips that anyone would need to know to manage your periods perfectly. If you guys have any more questions, or perhaps any more tips, or anything you want me to talk about in more detail, please comment below and let me know. And I'm so proud to be in Kolkata today, hopefully when you see this video, with UNICEF India, promoting World Menstruation Day and promoting to young Indian girls that periods does not need to be a voodoo. It is the most natural thing that every woman goes through, and more than that, I think it's something to be proud of because it makes us women. I love you guys. Until next video, bye!